Do you know when the last time the United States was invaded? It was more than 200 years ago, during a war with Canada, or more precisely, with the British Empire. At the time, Canada was still a British colony. British royal troops entered the American homeland from the north and scored a number of victories that Americans have not forgotten. The British advanced deep into U.S. territory, burned Washington, D.C., and set the White House on fire. That was in 1814. President James Madison had to evacuate. One of the most iconic quotes from that time comes from First Lady Dolley Madison, as she ordered the rescue of George Washington's portrait amid the chaos.
"Save that portrait. If anything happens to it, my husband will be furious."
But that was when America was still small and not yet the vast nation it is today. Since then, for over 2 centuries, the U.S. has not only avoided being invaded, it has actively projected its military power across the world, from Europe to Asia, from the Middle East to Africa. The most striking part? Every one of those wars happened outside American soil. Under the banner of bringing freedom and democracy, America built its image as a nation fighting for global justice. But ever since the War of 1812, no country has had the power or the courage to set foot on the American mainland. Why is that? And could that ever change? Just look at the map. The U.S. stretches over 2,800 miles across North America, bordered by 2 massive oceans, the Pacific to the west and the Atlantic to the east. It's a rare geographic advantage. The West Coast is not only protected by the Pacific Ocean, but also by towering mountain ranges like the Sierra Nevada and the Rockies. To the south lie the harsh deserts that separate the U.S. from Mexico. So, for any country hoping to attack the U.S. from the west, they'd have to cross an ocean, glaciers, mountain chains, and deserts. An almost impossible feat. And the east isn't any easier. You'd have to traverse the vast Atlantic before even reaching American shores. Of course, geography is only part of the equation. Japan, too, is shielded by oceans and mountains, yet America invaded it in 1945. That's why potential invasions from the north through Canada or the south via Mexico have always been considered. But for over 2 centuries, it's never happened. Why hasn't anyone dared? The answer lies in the story of how modern America was built. In its early years, the U.S. didn't control the Western territories. But after the war with Mexico in 1848, the U.S. forced Mexico to cede its western lands, including California. That was when America gained its full Pacific coastline, surrounded by natural barriers. That same year, the California gold rush exploded. Waves of people rushed west in search of fortune.
"Gold! Gold on the American River!"
The shout echoed around the world, and eyes turned toward America. Rich, vast, and full of promise, the U.S. was no longer a fledgling nation. The Mississippi River ran through the heart of the country, enabling fast transport of goods and troops. With that kind of economic and geographic advantage, America began to act like every empire before it. The land of stars and stripes used wealth to build its military, and used the military to extend its reach. As President Theodore Roosevelt once said,
"Speak softly and carry a big stick. You will go far."
America took control of Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines. Some of those countries later gained independence, but many regions remained under U.S. influence. When the world descended into global war, the U.S. initially stayed neutral. But after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, President Franklin D. Roosevelt addressed Congress.
December 7th, 1941. A date which will live in infamy.
And the U.S. entered the war. After World War II, only 2 superpowers were left, America and the Soviet Union. The Cold War began. To counter Soviet influence in Europe, the US and its allies formed NATO. Article 5 of the treaty made it clear: an attack against one is an attack against all. In Asia, the US signed military pacts with Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines. In the Middle East, it built ties with Saudi Arabia and Israel. In Latin America, it led the Rio Pact. The result? A global military network. Today, the US maintains over 800 military bases in more than 80 countries. Many allied nations not only accept, but invite America's military presence in exchange for security. America's defense industry has boomed, with a defense budget totaling hundreds of billions of dollars, more than the next 10 countries combined. After the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, the US became the world's sole superpower. But rather than pulling back, America expanded NATO, something that infuriated Russia. In 2014, Russia annexed Crimea. By 2022, it launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Meanwhile, in the east, China rose, threatening Taiwan and disputing territory in the South China Sea. These global tensions have made many nations even more dependent on America, not because they want to be, but because they need to be. And that's why no one dares invade the United States. On one hand, the US enjoys exceptional geography, protected by nature itself. With satellites, radar, and modern technology, any attack would be detected early. On the other hand, even if an enemy somehow reached the mainland, the rugged terrain of the West would pose a massive obstacle. Not to mention, America is simply too rich and too powerful. With the world's largest economy and the most advanced military, the US is capable of defeating any invading force. And above all, America does not stand alone. It has an entire global network of allies, nations that would stand by the US not out of loyalty, but for their own survival. History shows that becoming a superpower isn't luck. It's the result of strategy, geography, strength, and willpower. And any nation still dreaming of invading America should probably abandon that dream while it's still just an idea.